Hello, my friends. Welcome to Poetry Changes Lives. Here it is. Here's the book, Poetry Changes Lives, a book of daily poetry, thought for the day, and a little bit of history thrown in as well. poetrychangeslives.com is my website where you can read the daily entry, and you can read all about poetry of so many kinds, because poetry has so many wonderful aspects. It's been with us since the dawn of history, you know, and that's quite something. It's still a powerful force in the world today, very powerful, I would say. And you can, if you go to the website, you can buy the book as well. It makes a very good book, I think, to dip in and out of on a daily basis, give to your friends, just something to read when you're feeling a bit bored. The power of poetry is so wonderful. I just love talking about it. And today I'm going right back into history to one of the people who could be said to have started it all, the great ancient Greek poet Homer, that mysterious voice speaking to us across the centuries from, well, the millennia, from way, way back, before writing was invented, probably. Homer was reciting his poems. He would do it to music with a lyre, a bit like this. I'm not going to annoy you by making funny noises on this, but this is a kind of a replica of a Greek lyre, because poetry and music go very well together. And people in ancient times, they really, really went for poetry. They loved a bit of storytelling, a bit of history, and a bit of beautiful word imagery as well. And before books were commonplace, the only way they could get it was by sitting round a campfire listening to a narrator, a poet, a person who would recite beautiful poetry. And Homer did just that with his lyre, like this. I'm going to put that down now. Can you imagine the scene 3,000 years ago, somewhere like ancient Athens, still very much a sort of probably just a collection of rather ramshackle shacks, maybe one or two bigger buildings, and Homer the poet comes along and has a story to tell, and people gather round, and he starts off telling them the story of the Odysseus, the famous warrior king from Ithaca in western Greece, who went to Troy and was largely or partly responsible for winning that war against the Trojans. And the story of Odysseus in ancient Greek begins like this. Andromoi enepemousa, polotropon, hos malapola, plankthe epi troies, hieron toleathron a person, which means, sing to me, O muse of the man, Andra, that first word, the Greek word for man. Sing to me, O muse of the man, the most unfortunate man who suffered many difficulties when he had razed to the ground the holy buildings of the city of Troy. And it goes on to narrate the story of King Odysseus's return across the Mediterranean from Troy back to Greece. Only a matter of a few hundred miles, but boy, it took him a long time. It took him maybe 8 to 10 years, all the strange people he encountered and the difficulties he had keeping his men and his ship together and evading the mythical, sometimes godlike creatures who wanted to use him and his men as playthings. And it's remarkable that Homer, one of the very first poets, writers that we have, should have gone into such detail. And really what he's doing in the story of Odysseus and his difficulties and his long journey, it's a kind of a metaphor for Odysseus's struggles with himself. All these mythical creatures like the lotus eaters who just sat around taking mood-altering drugs, in effect, is just one aspect of the character of Odysseus. And another would be falling in love with beautiful women, all that kind of thing. It's very much a metaphor. And it's remarkable that a person 3,000 years ago would have thought of writing that sort of thing. And people today, right now in 2026, are talking about Odysseus and his Odyssey, as it's known, his journey, because of a very good film, I understand, has been made, a movie about it. And that in itself is another thing worth remarking on, that an ancient fable of 3,000 years ago should suddenly be so popular that millions and millions of people are going to cinemas all over the world to see this fabulous tale, beautifully told, and at some length, I may say. Christopher Nolan, the great director who's made the film lasts nearly 3 hours, 2 hours 52 minutes, I think, which is a long time to be sitting in a cinema staring at a screen. So the film must be pretty good, I reckon. It does raise the question whether Nolan might have been better off splitting up the story into a series of episodes. After all, the Odyssey in its written form, to recite the Odyssey, which contains thousands and thousands of words, it's calculated that to recite all those words in the 24 books of the Odyssey in ancient Greek would take you probably something between 18 and 24 hours to do. So the original Homer, when he was reciting the Odyssey, if indeed there was such a man as Homer, it would have been split up into episodes, books probably. Each of those 24 books takes nearly an hour to recite. So it would have happened over a period of days and been all the more interesting for that. As I say, people in those days had so little in the form of entertainment that they really, really delighted in listening to storytelling, poetry, bit of drama, that sort of thing. And Homer provided that for them in spades. Homer sort of defined the Greek character for centuries to come, after he lived, and probably still defines it today, rather like Shakespeare does for the English. Isn't it remarkable that poetry that is such a power in the world today, in the 21st century, was also a huge power and influence 3,000 years ago? I just think that's a thought that you can play around with and be grateful for. Be grateful for the inspiration, the beauty, the imagery, the use of words, the education, the history that you get out of ancient poetry. And I, for one, am grateful to Homer. Homer always comes out on top. Christopher Nolan may have done a great job with his new movie, but there will be others to come, just as there have been many before. But Homer carries on regardless, like a ship sailing serenely on, only being enhanced, evolving, gradually benefiting and really enjoying all this interest and variation on his original, beautiful, remarkable, unbeatable theme, the Odyssey, epic poetry at its greatest. Thanks for listening.